colleagues and friends. Kambria Evans here, the teaching and learning EMDR consultant. And y'all, today we are having our first international guest on the Zero Disturbance Podcast. We've gone worldwide. And we're going to be talking today with someone I consider a dear friend. This is Tracy Lynch in Newcastle, Australia. Now, for those of you who have wanted to think about how to design your practice to serve you first, you are not going to want to miss today's episode. Tracy was one of our early adopters of our EMDR intensive design kit, and she took this kit and devoured it and completely revamped her practice. I think just maybe a week after the kit came out at the end of 2020. And it was so cool to get to talk with her now exactly a year later to see what has transformed for her, not just in her business, not just in terms of the impact positively on all of her clients, but just what's transformed in her life. I mean, we're not just talking about designing clinical services to help clients. We're talking about that plus how can we set up our practice to serve us first? How do we get to be considered and even embraced by our practice design? And Tracy is just this living, breathing example of what I imagined could happen for people with the intensive design kit. So I'm very excited for you to listen to her story, hopefully feel inspired by her journey. And y'all, she has taken this kit and she has taken it to the next level. She's doing retreats. She's integrating parts work and somatic things. I mean, she's incredible. Gottman trained. So I know you're going to fall in love with Tracy just as much as I have. And I hope today's episode feels like it's in service to you as you reimagine what your practice could do for you. All right, so this is our first international podcast interview. I'm so excited. We're here today with Tracy Lynch, and she is in Newcastle, Australia. And Tracy was one of our early adopters of the intensive design kit. I think she was purchase number 6 or 7 when this first came out a year ago. And I really wanted to have you on here today, Tracy, because not only are you doing intensives, but you're just doing so much in your business. I know that you're a mom as well. You have so many interests and passions. So I thought it'd be fun for us to chat today. And so folks can feel inspired and nourished and kind of recharged by that conversation. So thank you for hanging out with me. I know we had to negotiate the time difference, so I'm glad we could find some overlap.
Yeah, thank you, Kambria. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here today.
Me too. Before we kind of dive in, do you want to let folks know kind of what you're up to in Australia, kind of, like a summary of kind of what your mission is and kind of what you're invested in doing in your practice?
Sure. So I am a registered counsellor and also a clinical hypnotherapist. And I've been in private practice now for about 15 years and in the counselling industry, if you like, for almost 30 years now. I spent a lot of my earlier years working in not-for-profits, so in the community sector and in domestic violence services. And I'm so thankful for that because I feel like that gave me a really broad, juicy base of meeting lots of different people and experiencing trauma in many different ways, alongside of resilient stories. So yes, I'm very thankful for my time in the community sector. So currently I am the director and owner of a company that's called Thrive Wellness Hub. And it is, I guess, it's in a beautiful warehouse. So we've converted a warehouse in Newcastle, and we have 10 rooms in the space. And some of those rooms are leased out, subleased out by complementary allied health practitioners,
Awesome.
massage, naturopaths, other psychologists, other counsellors.
Mm-hmm.
And I also have my contract team that are running in this building as well. So I have 4 counsellors that work with me, that I mentor and supervise. And 2 of those have just finished their level 1 EMDR training. So that's exciting.
Wow. So this is going to be a real trauma-focused, EMDR-focused group, it sounds like.
Exactly. Yeah.
So needed. That's incredible.
Yeah. And then my own personal private practice, which has changed significantly because of your input, really significantly changed in the last year, is only intensive therapy, and I also do some supervision. I'm an accredited practitioner now with EMDRA, which is the Australian EMDR, and on my consultation pathway now. And I focus with my intensives are both for individuals, and this year I'm starting couples EMDR intensive therapy.
Yes, this is awesome. Oh my gosh. I can't wait to talk about this. This is very, very cool. And I know we'll circle back to this at some point in our conversation. We have a lot to talk about. But you also are, a teacher for your consultees, but you're also a teacher for this resource therapy, like kind of like parts work. And so we'll definitely want to talk about that today as well.
Great. That'd be awesome, because that's one of my other passions. I think EMDR and resource therapy make a beautiful, passionate couple together. Mm-hmm. So I'm really excited to talk about that.
I love it. I love that you're such an innovative business person, and there's this mission to serve and to help not just individuals, but now couples. And I love that you're doing all of this while you're a mom. I mean, you talked about how we both have twins. And it's incredible. So I hope that whoever catches this episode feels inspired to feel creative, because I know a lot of us now, 2 years into COVID, are feeling just so tired and just blah and just over this. So I'm hoping people can hear your story and feel like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do that, or I'm gonna try that, right? Because you've really just done so many experiments in your business, which is just so cool. So let's go back in time together a little bit. The intensive kit was released I think the very end of December, early January. And you were like one of the first people to buy this. And I had this moment of like, you create something and you don't realize that, anyone in the world can buy it. And so when I saw people buying it in like Germany and Australia and the UK, I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to help people everywhere. This is so exciting. And you and I started to connect, and you were just like going for it. Like do you want to tell people like how that started for you?
Oh, yes. So it was honestly almost a week, this same week that we're recording the podcast 12 months ago. I actually put some of my client work on hold at the end of November last year, because I could feel myself going down the drain pipe. We talk about sort of burnout, and I was definitely brown and crispy, moving into the black zone. Mm-hmm. And that was because I was seeing probably 20 to 25 clients a week in those hour sessions. Mm-hmm. And I just felt the amount of energy that I had to give to introduce the session, do the processing, wrap it up, making sure that they're, safe to go, having a quick drink and a toilet stop, and then come on in. The next
and maybe even some food in between, right? Yeah.
As well as you mentioned, I've got 3 children, twins and one older, and they were coming to the end of their schooling years. Wow. And a husband that usually travels a lot, hasn't been traveling much of late, but just feeling like wrung out, completely wrung out. and really feeling that I needed to take a good look at my boundaries, because I have to also be responsible to why I was feeling so wrung out. So I actually I said to my admin manager, please let my clients know that I need to take some leave and I will check in with them when I get back. That was a big step in itself, but I felt like I've got to stop this train before it runs off the rails.
Good for
So
you. That's huge. And this was November of 2020. It sounds like you had this moment.
Yes,
wow.
That's right. November of 2020. So I went on a road trip on my own. I'm an Indigenous Australian woman, and I needed to go back and connect to country and go and sit with some of my elders and just be still for a while and catch my breath. So I did that. And, I often think about what happens to us prior to when we make a big successful change. It's not just a big successful change. It's actually what happens. What are the steps that took place that we did well prior to that success? So I think I had to almost make some space to then open up and receive what you had for me, So I went on that road trip, had Christmas, went away with the family. And then the weekend before we're about to start to get back into work, I did some research and found the intensive kit and devoured that. And then then the fear. Hello, fear. Hello, fear. Welcome to the room.
And thank you for naming that. I want to pause. It's so important because I think people look at people who have done like a business change or a new practice model or tried an experiment, and I think they see them on the other side and they don't understand that it's scary. Like that's part of it. And I have moments still where I freak out. Like I'll try something new with my business and I get so scared. And so I love that you named that because it's just part of the process, right?
Part of the process. I've come to learn that if we're going to break through a bit of a glass ceiling, fear will be there to walk through that glass ceiling with us. Yeah.
Yes.
And I really needed to stop and think, okay, what are the core beliefs? What are those negative core beliefs running underneath this fear? Mm-hmm. And for me, there was a lot of stuff about what are my colleagues, like I'm going to put my prices up significantly.
Yes.
Right. Because I like for my well-being and my family's well-being, I am going to see less clients and I'm going to charge more.
Yes.
I'm not able to, we call it Medicare, which is your equivalent of insurance. So no, that'll go out the window. And I'm going to put my prices up.
Wow.
And I was really sitting with, a lot of those voices for me were like, well, who do you think you are? Look at you. All of that.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So it's a little bit like Fraser's table. I actually remember that night I sat down and I almost had a board meeting with all of my parts. Let them all have a say.
I love it.
And show them all compassion and be curious about where those thoughts originated and do some butterfly hugging on myself and sitting with that. Just decided, no, this is what I'm doing. And all of those parts, you can come with me or you can do whatever you want to do, but I'm going to, that part of me, my intuition, my wisdom said, I'm going that way. And that's what we're going to do.
That's incredible. I so appreciate you breaking down that process because slowing it down and noticing all the kind of emotional work and the noticing yourself and the care for yourself in that process that you gave yourself the space to do that. It makes sense to me now that you were able to really just in a very kind of accelerated way from where I sat, and get the intensives going, because I remember, I don't know if it was an email or something I got from you, and it was like, and I've booked, like 8 intensives. I was like, wow, like she just bought this. So I think that's just incredible that you just went right in, but on the back end, doing all of this work for yourself to make it feel okay for you.
That's it. Yeah. And like you said, Kambria, like from the start, people look on even at what you do and think, wow, look at her go. And the same people were looking on and saying, look at her go. But there's a lot going on behind the scene. Yeah. And even with those steps, fear was there. Mm-hmm. It's this stuff. If I'm going to wait until fear doesn't show up to do something good, it'll never happen.
That's right.
So yeah, so my husband was cheering me on from the sidelines, and he said, do it, just do it. So I think it was seriously that night that I'd finished, I checked my emails and I had a new client inquiry, and I send an email back just saying, thanks for your inquiry. I actually am specialising in intensive work now. So what that means for me is 2-hour sessions. So the sessions go for 2 hours, and I do 3 sessions with that same person within 1 week.
Yep.
Yeah. And this might be part of an adjunct therapy, or it might be standalone therapy. This is the way I work. This is the costing. Let me know if you're interested. And there was the shaky finger send, and I sent her. And I went to bed and I tapped away and just went, right, it's out there. Got up the next morning, had sort of let it go, checked my emails around midday, and the client said, that sounds fantastic, book me in. So that was seriously 24 hours later.
Amazing. Well, and if we zoom out and look at that, it makes so much sense, right? I started to work in the intensive model and working intensively because, I had my twins and I was like, I have to do something differently. There's just not enough space in my life. There's not enough income coming in. The clients have to kind of wait to feel better. And so it makes sense now, right, that people are struggling, that they would want to have intensive therapy now, maybe more than ever, really. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, the demand is just it's so there, and people don't think about that part.
That's right. And I think, like I've heard other guests that you've had on say they just didn't know, how it would go, if demand would be there. But I have just sold my 52nd intensive. 52 intensives in a year. Yeah.
Incredible. That's so incredible. And just noticing, just in terms of kind of like where you started from in terms of, the crispiness coming in, have you noticed a difference in how you've been feeling the past year? I know that's hard because there's variables like COVID and other things that are happening, but just in terms of your clinical work, has it felt different for you?
Oh, what 100%. Like I honestly believe that if I hadn't changed my model in how I deliver my service, I don't know that I could have kept going.
Yeah.
It was the energy. My energy was just dispersed everywhere, and I felt out of control. Yeah. And we work hard. We give a lot of ourselves. We've trained for years. And I was just really ready to step into a place where what I was giving was equal to what I was receiving. That energy return.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I've fallen back in love with my work again.
Oh, I'm so sad. That's so wonderful.
Yeah. So, yeah, just so thankful and grateful that I came across you, and it was very random, like it was that I did. Someone on the other side of the world talking about these, because I hadn't even really heard of intensives back then. It wasn't like I went on an intensive training search. I hadn't heard of them. They were still pretty new, especially in Australia. There's
a lot of the models too that I had heard about were like, 5 days, long days, or 3 days, 8 hours each. And when I heard about that, I just thought that sounds miserable for the clinician. I mean, just for me, just as my phase of life, it might be great for other people, but I love that you took the kit and you were like, I'm going to do these 2-hour segments and this feels good for me.
Yeah.
Right. I'm on a mission for people to, if we are in this role of service and we're delivering healing for people, I just want us to consider ourselves as EMDR therapists. And I really believe that integrating this into our practice model is like the highest form of self-care, because I was getting pissed off that people were like, yeah, see 25 clients and then go garden or like get a massage and that's your self-care. And I thought, why is this so separated? Like, I want my life to feel better, right? Exactly. My whole life.
Yeah. And I mean, a big part of my journey with therapy is doing the work on myself alongside of supporting my clients to do their work. So if I'm not able to do a deep dive and really consider what are the core beliefs that are running this show, and what do I, and if they're ones that I'm not really happy with, then let's look at the VOC and think about what do I choose and what do I need to get there? Do I need to go and have some EMDR therapy on myself? Do I need to sit with this longer? What are the parts of me that are running the bus,
I'm listening to you, Tracy, and I already had this sense of you from our interactions before. You are just so genuine, and you clearly are someone who walks the walk. I don't know if you know this, but I follow you on Instagram, and every Instagram post you put out, it's just like feeding my soul and like nourishing me. And whether it's like a reel or it's like, I get the deep sense that you have wisdom as someone who's done the work yourself. And like you've been there, and then you can deliver that to your clients in a really authentic way. So everyone listening, if you don't know Tracy Lynch, follow her on Instagram and you will get like therapy vitamins for your heart.
Thank you, so Kambria. That really means a lot, because I think we've got a strong mutual respect. So thank you.
Of course. So tell us about this shift of like going from individual intensive work to the couples. I think that's so cool.
Yeah, well, so it's I'm definitely dipping my toe in the water, and that's another more fears come up there. So I am level 3 Gottman trained. So I've done my my Gottman training. In fact, I had the joy of those days back in the days when you can get on that thing that flies through the sky and it takes you to another country. Those days.
What was that called again? I think I saw that in a movie once. Was it an airplane? Yeah.
So I came over to Seattle. I don't know, probably 4 years ago now, and did some more training with the Gottman Institute. And so what I'm going to do is combine some of these amazing Gottman tools, but use the processing work with couples, having them in session at the same time. And when we get to the part of the therapy where we need to consider what are the core beliefs, what are our beliefs that are showing up in this relationship, where is the affect sitting in my body, and dropping into that. And then I'm going to be using the partners to run the BLS. The tapping on each other's knees. This is not my idea. There's an amazing clinician in the UK, and his name, I should have had his name there, it escapes me, but
we'll Google it. We'll give him credit afterwards. We'll Google his name.
Credit later. Yeah. So I sat in a webinar with him, and it's very much it's a learning, like in terms of combining the two. Yeah. It'll be 4 days. The intensive will be 4 days with the couple, and the sessions will go for 2 hours. There'll be no more than 4 hours in one day. So a 2-hour session, and then an hour for the couple to go and have lunch and a walk, and then another 2-hour session. And then they'll see some of my massage therapists.
So you have a retreat center basically that
Pretty
you're
much. Yeah. Yeah.
incredible. And
Yeah.
I mean, I can just imagine all the couples who are going to need this
Oh, yeah.
level
Yeah.
of reconnection and intimacy, right?
That's right.
Because a lot of us have been, sheltering in place and quarantine together, and that hasn't always been pretty for a lot of people,
No. Yeah, it's taken a lot of coins out of the emotional sort of love bank, hasn't it?
Yep,
With
that's
managing
right.
kids and school and relationship. And look, these couples intensives are not for every couple. They
Right.
won't be for every couple. They are only for couples that have a level of commitment and a high level of safety within their relationship.
Beautiful.
They're not going to be for couples that have got 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
Yeah. And
No.
I love that, I mean, you have so much advanced clinical knowledge that you can integrate these different modalities in this way. Right. And so I think it's beautiful that you know that and can name it. Right. Because when we have intensive work, there is a screening process we have to do about, is doing this intensive going to make you be successful? Right.
Yeah, that's right. And so all of those pre-intensive questionnaires, that are going out. I also do a free discovery call before the intensive, because I just want to make sure that this is going to be a good fit. It's going to be a good fit for the client. It's going to be a good fit for me.
Yes.
And if it's not, then I'll refer them to one of my team that work in the more traditional way.
I love that you're considering yourself in every choice and every decision too. I think that's beautiful, because we show up as our best selves when we consider ourselves, right? Is this going to be a client or a couple that I'm going to want to work with and I can help them be successful? So I love that you have that on your checklist. I think that's beautiful.
Yeah. And then we've mentioned it briefly before, but in all of my work, both the individuals but the couples work, one of my mainstays is resource therapy, which is
I want to learn more about this with you. Yeah, tell us about it, because we have parts work, IFS, ego states here in the States. I would love to hear more about what you're excited about.
Sure. So resource therapy is a therapy that was developed by Professor Gordon Emerson. He's a psychologist here in Australia. And it came out of advanced ego state therapy. The parent, adult, child. So that's where internal parent, adult, child, that's the foundation. But he's taken that and he's introduced this amazing protocol. So there's a real strong map of where we're going with clients. And we're looking at the client through a diagnostic lens, which is not a deficit diagnostic lens, as in you have anxiety. The way we look at it is there is a part of you that is holding anxiety. And when that part comes into the driver's seat, it takes over and it sends messages to the rest of you that there are no other parts, that there is just anxiety holding consciousness in the driver's seat. Yep. But what we know is that on that bus, I use this bus metaphor, on the bus, there are many different parts of you.
Yes.
It's just in that moment, anxiety is holding the steering wheel. And in resource therapy, anxiety is fear-based. Yeah. And so we talk about the big four emotions in resource therapy: fear, rejection, disappointment, and confusion. Wow. They're the big four. And there's protocols of how to work with each of those big four emotions.
Wow, that's amazing that you use the word map. I think that having that level of detail and having a map, especially for parts work, I think people typically understand as therapists like the concept of parts. I think that there's a lot of hesitation about how to use it, especially with EMDR, because EMDR is so detailed and so protocoled and scripted, and parts work can often feel like very kind of conceptual and ambiguous. So I love that there's something people can hold on to.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the things that attracted me originally to resource therapy, that there was instructions, like, oh, there's instructions. But then obviously once we know the instructions really well, then as therapists, we become artists. Then we get to play. We
Yes.
get to create and play. So I know the instructions, and if I'm getting a bit lost in the forest, I can come back and go, right, here's my map.
Yeah.
But I get to play in the forest because sometimes that's where the magic is, hey, in the forest. That's where the magic is, in the bush.
Yes.
There's bush medicine in the bush. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So the other great thing about resource therapy, which I think is really exciting for the EMDR community, is it teaches us how to resource people really well. Yeah. So, and that's very important to me, that before I start any processing work, particularly if I know this client has, dissociative tendencies, or if this client is potentially going to have some resistance, I want to make sure that they've got a big enough boat to catch those fish.
Love that.
And again, that's not that. I think that's a Thomas Zimmerman metaphor. We'll have to look into that. I'll send you the link of who that metaphor is. But that stuff about if we've only got a canoe and that's our resource, and we're going to catch whales, then it's not going to fare well. But if we've got a good sized boat, then we can catch good sized fish. And so resource therapy teaches us how to wake up those resources, to get those neurons firing on a sensory level.
Wow.
It really does, it takes the safe place and the nurture figure, protective figure, it takes them to the next level. Yeah.
Well, and I'm listening to you and I'm learning about this in real time. What a comfort for an EMDR therapist. I mean, a lot of us are having to work virtually too. So a lot of us, I think, are feeling even a little bit more anxiety or hesitation to start phase 4 processing, right?
Yeah.
Because we already are, afraid that someone's going to have an abreaction, and then you're virtual and it's like, so we're not even kind of in our full body as clinicians that way. But how comforting is it to know that there's this thing I can take these instructions, right, and feel really confident that we're being safe and we're really in phase 2 resourcing in a really creative way, because I imagine that creates a lot more flow, right, to go into phases 3 and 4 and so on.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And even just doing some resource stacking exercises before we start processing. So sometimes I'll do a SUD scale on an image that we're thinking of, and it might be, 9 out of 10. And then I'll do some resource stacking, which is like bringing in those resources. Yep. Tell me a time when, you didn't feel like that. Anytime. Like, so for example, the negative cognition might be, I'm not good at anything. And therefore I'm not enough.
Yes.
And then I'll say, okay, I'll note that down. And then I'll say, all right, so let's just be curious together. Has there been any time in your life where you've been good at anything? Any time, and we work with that a little bit. And even to the point where, like, and if they're no, there's not, I'm not good at anything. How did you get here today? I drove. You drove. Okay, great. Let's just stop and go back into that. Let's be curious about that. Close your eyes over. Tell me about when you were learning, but talk to me in present tense. I'm in the car. I'm learning. What? Tell me about that day you passed your driver's test. Tell me about that. What was going on? What was that part of you that was in the driver's seat when you passed that driver's seat? Let's name that part. Let's name it. Yeah. And we name it. They might say confident. So great. Let's anchor confident in. If there was an animal that represented the image of that confidence, that represented the essence of confidence, or a symbol, we go after anchors, we anchor it in. A bear. I'm like, okay, great. What color bear? We've got the bear right now. We've got the bear there. Now tell me another time. And I might go after 3 resources or stack
You're
them
just
on top.
lighting them up. I mean, I'm listening to you and I'm hearing it, right? I mean, you're having them tell it in real time, which is lighting them up right? And getting them back in that memory network. And then
Yeah.
you're giving them that beautiful anchor. I mean, gosh, just that idea of having this part, but then taking it into an animal. I mean, it feels almost like I don't want to use the word magical, but something spiritual about it almost. Like it feels like it's in a really deep place for people.
It is. It connects with something that they've gotten lost from. They've lost. It's bringing them back home to their magic. To their magic. And so we stack those on. Now, obviously, then I've got to go back and I've got to reactivate the trauma. I've got to reactivate it. So then I've got to wake up the trauma again. Mm-hmm. Then we get a SUD scale, and the SUD scale has already dropped significantly before we even start the processing, because the adaptive information processing model is already coming online and it's doing its magic.
Beautiful. Yeah. I love that, because it almost makes processing easier, right? When we have this NC, but we've said, here's this PC, and it's not even cognitive. I mean, I love that you're bringing in the body, and this is beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. And again, doing that with the couples, waking up those individual couple resources. And there's something beautiful in partners hearing, what animal is my wife going to land on? What animal is my partner going to land on? And being part of that awakening, if you like, in that couple.
Such intimacy. I mean, if we think about when we used to be able to go to trainings in person and doing these exercises as a clinician and feeling how profound those shifts are for ourselves, or even being in graduate school and having this cohort of people and having these really incredible shifts, the intimacy there, being able to have that with your partner, that's beautiful.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Oh, you're so cool, Tracy. I mean, I swear, like I love Australia so much. I have to get back there. It's been, over 20 years since I was visiting there, but I have this fantasy one day when everything's safe, I'm going to fly out, write it off as a business expense, and we're going to teach something together. I don't know what it is, but we're going to hang out.
I can feel that too. Yeah. We're ready for you over here, Kambria.
Oh my gosh. Very cool. Well, if anyone listening to this wants to come work with you as a client, if anyone listening to this wants to come learn with you as a student, maybe they're already a clinician or EMDR clinician, how can people find you? What's the best way to find you?
Yeah, thank you. So as you mentioned, I can follow along on my Instagram page, which is Tracy Lynch Therapy. And I'm actually, I've put aside a 2-day training in March that is the foundation of resource therapy. So it's 2-day. Obviously, that will be via online. And I'm really open to do it in US time. So the time frame is friendly. So jump onto my website and there'll be a register your interest link, and then you can register for the 2-day foundation in resource therapy. And if that lights you up, which for a lot of people it does, then there's an 8-day training later in the year that will be done in chunks. It'll be done in chunks. It's not 8 days of Zoom land.
Beautiful. And the website, people should go find that. We can put the link after the episode, but what's the website people can find you?
Yeah, so it's Tracy without an E, tracylynch.com.au.
Beautiful. Well, I'll have to check out the dates. Maybe I can come to your training.
I'd love
to with you. That'd be fun.
Yeah,
that'd be a lot of fun. Oh, well, I appreciate you spending time with me. I appreciate you sharing yourself with me and everyone else. I think you're just one of the good ones. You just have such a beautiful heart. It just comes through now. It comes through on your Instagram page. It comes through on everything in terms of our contact together. So thank you for hanging out with me, making the time difference work. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. And Kambria, I just want to honestly, from my heart, thank you. And I think it was one of those, universe things or something, but I know it might sound a bit corny, but you actually have changed my world in many different ways and gave me the opportunity to do a deeper dive into myself, to be able to to, move forward.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think we're both getting a bit teary. So, thank you.
Oh, it's my honor. It's my absolute honor. Beautiful. I want to again thank Tracy Lynch for hanging out with us here on the Zero Disturbance Podcast. Thanks for making the time difference work, y'all. She's in the future in so many ways, but literally in the future. So I appreciate Tracy coordinating the time and making it happen with us. And if you are somebody who is like eating up what Tracy's putting out, I would hope that you would invite yourself to either work with her as a client. You're also welcome to learn how to train with Tracy in her upcoming training. We'll have all of the information in the information paragraph below for you to check out and learn more. And if you are somebody who is thinking about intensives, whether you're an EMDR clinician or a trauma-informed therapist, we have now converted our EMDR intensive design kit for every trauma therapist. Every trauma-informed therapist can do intensive work with your clients, with your existing level of clinical knowledge. All you need to do is to have someone help you figure out the design that feels appropriate and ethical for you where you are. You can serve your clients in a different way. So if you are someone who's interested in learning more about that, we do have our intensive kit available for any therapist. So you're welcome to check that out and see if that's in service to you. So great to be with you all again. Looking forward to putting out even more content in 2022 that continues to serve you, support you, enliven you, inspire you. And in the meantime, until we're together again, please stay safe, stay healthy, and I'm rooting for your success.